So hello, and thank you for joining the conversation around the water cooler, where we bring important topics to the Savannah community. And today's topic is Corporate Transparency Act and how all small businesses must submit a BOI report to FinCEN. So attorney Jeffrey Williamson, founder of the J.W. Williamson Law Group, is here to answer the questions. Jeffrey specializes in elder care, elder law, asset protection, and tax planning. He has offices in Savannah, Statesboro, and Atlanta. This is cool. Prior to starting his own firm, he serves as an internal revenue agent and is an expert in the audit policies and procedures. So Jeffrey, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the water cooler. But before we get started, I want to go around the Zoom room. I'm going to start with Brian. I want to thank all the small business owners. I asked these guys because they all have a big audience with small business owners, and we need to get the word out about this, because if you don't file, guess what? It's $500 a day starting January 1st. So Brian, let's start with you.
And
who are you? Who are you with?
I'm the senior business broker at Best Business Brokers. In that role, I end up talking to probably 150, 200 small business owners every year. And, any information we can spread is valuable. Help people stay out of trouble.
Thank you. All right. Somi.
Hey, I'm Somi Benson-Jaja. I'm the 2024 president of Buy Local Savannah, where we empower locally owned businesses through networking and growth mechanisms. I'm also a photographer and owner of Shot by Somi Studios. We are a portrait photography company where we do events as well as branding portraits for our clients.
Thank you for being on. Nick.
Hey, everybody. It's an honor to be here with you at the water cooler chatting. I'm the executive director of the Creative Coast. We're the #1 hub for Savannah's entrepreneurs, creatives, and dreamers. So here as an entrepreneurial support organization and to support you guys, and super important topic out there, because for many of our small business owners and new entrepreneurs, they're getting hit with a frying pan for the first time on this critically important issue, and just proud to spread the word.
Excellent. Thank you. And where I first heard about it was with Lou's company, Savannah Business Journal. So, Lou?
Hi, everyone. I am Lou Phelps, the founder and publisher of the Savannah Business Journal, now in our 27th year. As Marjorie said, I found out about this and started reporting on it, and that created interest. And the Savannah Business Journal goes out 7 days a week to over 10,000 people. We are the largest email outbound database, we believe, in this whole region. You can read our newsletter every day and sign up on savannahbusinessjournal.com. You can read the newsletter for free, and it's only $25 a year, $2 a month to read all of our content. So we thank everyone for our loyal readership, and we will continue to report on this very interesting and confusing topic that Jeffrey's going to explain to us today.
Yes.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
So we're going to start with the first question. What is it? What is the Corporate Transparency Act?
So, the United States is a member of, the G7 and the G8 and all of these other countries. And for a long time, other countries have had measures like what the Corporate Transparency Act is to combat terrorism financing, money laundering, and things like that. And the act was actually passed over President Trump's veto. It was a veto override. He vetoed it, but Congress shoved it through anyway. And it was actually passed before the effective date. It was January 1 of this year. And as I said, it's really just an information reporting requirement tool. And it's going to require certain. Well, let me just say, as I get started, there's 3 terms that you need to really be familiar with. Reporting company, that's who has to report, beneficial owner, and company applicant. Just keep those terms in mind. I'll repeat them again. Reporting company, beneficial owner, and company applicant. And the act really just requires you to file something with FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Network. There's a database, and I think Marjorie will post it online, the website where you have to go and file this. It's free to file, but it's just a way. What are you doing? You're putting your information into a database so that if later you are ensnared in some kind of criminal activity, you know, that the authorities have sort of this database, this big soup bowl, if you will, to look at your information and what you own and what you don't own and that kind of thing. There are exemptions to filing, and as I was talking with Mr. Palumbo before we went live, nonprofits are exempt. So the Creative Coast, if it's a nonprofit entity, and charities and other things like that are not required to file. There are actually 23 exemptions, most of which our audience today is not going to qualify for. Big institutions, banks, financial holding companies, securities brokers. The reason they're exempt is because they're already having to file under some other provision. So that's the only reason they're exempt. Any entity pretty much that you own or any small business, an operating entity that has more than $5 million in annual revenue may be exempt. But for most of our small businesses, they're going to have to file this information. Interestingly, what is exempt is our trust. Now, trusts we'll talk about later, beneficial owners. But if you have a business operating as a trust, I don't know why this was just a big loophole in the statute. Trusts are exempt. So for those of you out there who want to skirt the rules of the Corporate Transparency Act, you can come see me and we'll set up a trust for you to get around these rules. That was just a joke. But I mean, it is a big loophole. What do you have to report? Basically, each individual beneficial owner, their full legal name, their date of birth, their current address. You got to post a photo ID, which for most of you will be a driver's license, and an image of that photo ID with a unique identifying number. Can it be a passport? Sure. What about the reporting company? What must the reporting company file? Full legal name of the business and any trade names, DBA, doing business as, the complete current address of the company's principal place of business, taxpayer identification number, things like that. The initial report, when is it due? If you have an entity, and when we say we're reporting entity, we're talking about entities that are created by state law. So an LLC, corporation, anything like that. You've got to file, if it was created prior to or December 31st, 2023 or before, you've got until January 1st, 2025 to file your report, okay? If you created an entity this year during 2024, you're ostensibly, the rule is you got 90 days after the entity is created to file it. And for those of you that have gone on the Secretary of State's website, I know Marjorie, this was raised in our, when we had that chamber meeting, you know, Secretary of State mentioned, oh, well, we're sending out this CTA, or short for Corporate Transparency Act information. If you file a new entity, you'll get this kind of, it's a little bit opaque, but this disclosure from the Secretary of State's website, if you're filing in Georgia, sort of a disclosure about this, but it doesn't really tell you, you know, what you got to file and where you got to go. Starting January 1, 2026, you only have 30 days to file on any entity, and you have 30 days to file any changes. So if the company's principal place of business changes, beneficial ownership changes, things like that, you know, you've got 30 days to make up the difference. Most of us who are listening, your deadline was going to be January 1, 2025 if you've been in business several years. So the clock is ticking.
So Jeffrey, can you repeat that again? I know some businesses that started it this year.
Yeah, so if they started this year, so let's say you filed July 1st, 2024. You've got July, August, September 30th would be your last day.
Wow. So they have to do it before the January.
They have to do it before.
And what happens if you don't file?
Yeah.
Talk to us about what happens if you don't hit these deadlines.
So There are both civil and criminal penalties for violating the CTA. And if filing fraudulent information, refusing to provide information, and being late, the fine is $500 a day up to $10,000 per.
Can you repeat that again?
$500 a day up to $10,000 for
Say that
failing to
one more
file.
time. People have to hear
Now,
this. That is
before
crazy.
everyone panics, let me just say that is a willful failure. So while I can't guarantee this, if you hadn't heard about it, or you didn't know and you filed, let's say you filed on the 120th day, but all your information is correct. Of course, I can't guarantee this, but it would be my confident expectation that FinCEN is not going to be coming after you. Okay. It has to be willful. So you know,
How do they prove that?
now,
though?
what is willful is really in the eye of the beholder, who maybe who the official is at FinCEN reviewing your application. But I mean, I don't want. I mean, you do have to file. You should take it seriously. But I wouldn't. I'll tell the audience, like I tell my private clients, don't freak out till I tell you to freak out. But if I tell you to freak out, it's time to panic. But it's not that time yet. So if you just found out and you're late, I would just get the information and get it together. And
Jeffrey, is this a one-time filing or is it like?
So it is a one-time. You go onto their website, and Marjorie, if you'll post that back up, the FinCEN. If you just Google, for those of you who need to know if you just Google FinCEN CTA, Corporate Transparency Act, or FinCEN BOI filing, you see it up there. It allows you to electronically file. Now, if you have a lot of entities, you can actually get what's called a FinCEN number. You can go online. Let's say Nick has 12 entities. Okay. You can submit your passport or your driver's license every time, but I worry about identity theft. And so we're filing a lot of these. So I went and got a FinCEN number. That's a unique 12-digit identifying number.
And how long did it take to get that?
Well, I'm not very computer savvy, Marjorie, so we need to grade on the curve. It took me 30 minutes, but it might only take you
to
50.
get the number, to apply for the number. Okay.
Yeah. You just go online. There's on that website, there's another link to apply for a FinCEN number. It's sort of like your social security number, but just for FinCEN.
But you don't need to do that? Or
you don't have to do it. But if you're doing a bunch of these,
that's what made me stop.
Yeah. I mean, what I would not be wanting to send my photo driver's license over the internet a bunch. I really don't want to send it over at all. And we're, at our firm, we're very, I'm just paranoid about identity theft, and we have all kind of security because we do tax stuff. I'm just telling you, if you just have one entity or two, it's probably not worth it. If you've got 6 or 8 or 10, I would recommend doing.
That's a really good point. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Lou, did you have a question?
I do. Thank you. So if you have an active LLC with the state of Georgia, for example, right? So they know you exist. Did you say they're sending us notices about this? Because I've not received anything.
If you file for a new LLC in Georgia, there will be a little disclosure.
But what if you have existing? Most of us have existing.
You might get it. You might have gotten it when you file your annual renewal. I can't say for sure.
No, Marjorie, no. We're not getting anything.
Lou and the chamber.
So you pay your money, you pay your $325 or whatever the heck they charge you. I haven't gotten anything.
Okay, well, I know that we frequently create new entities for clients. When you're creating a new entity, on the website or there will be some kind of notice about it.
I know, but most of us and most businesses exist, right? We've already got
That's not right. You can't count on. I was just putting that out there that there is this information, but you can't. You can't rely. The Secretary of State's office is not where you file this anyway. It's not under there. It's all federal. So I really think I need to,
from a news point of view, to help businesses as the Savannah Business Journal. I think, Marjorie, I need to call the Secretary of State's office and say, what are you going to do about telling existing businesses? I pay my $325. I did my renewal. Nobody's telling me about this.
And I submitted for those who are on the broad, a 2-page memorandum to Marjorie. And Marjorie, I don't know how you're going to post it, but maybe if everybody emails Marjorie, or she'll post it on our web. It's what I send to my clients. And if my email address is, if you email me, I'll send it to you, whomever's out there, you want it. It's written in plain English, and it's, oh, here we go. I received an email from it last week. Okay, so she did get some kind of email. But if you send me an email, I'll send you that 2-page notice, Nick, for you and your clients. It's like I said, it's written in plain English. Now, it's not completely exhaustive, everything you ever wanted to know about the Corporate Transparency Act, but it's designed for new businesses, small businesses, those that need the basics to not incur a penalty and file.
Yeah,
so,
I'll post it here too.
Here's one thing that we need to touch on. And I know this is more informal, but who is a beneficial owner? Well, if Nick forms his own LLC and he's the sole owner, then it's pretty clear he's the beneficial owner. But it's anybody that owns or controls 25% or more of an ownership interest in a company. But there is also a test, even if you own nothing, if you, quote, and this exercise substantial control over the reporting company, then you can still be required to file a BOI information. So here's an example of substantial control. Do you serve as a senior officer? Do you have substantial authority as a senior officer? Do you have the authority to hire and fire employees? Do you direct or determine or have substantial influence over important decisions? And this is straight from the statute. Have any other form, quote unquote, of substantial control? So what's caused a little bit of a brouhaha amongst attorneys and other people, that are dealing with this is the act is written very broadly. So Louis, when you email me, I'll actually send you the site to the Treasury Reg. It's in Title 31 of the Code of Federal Regulations, this rule. But you can have a president or chief financial officer of a company, and they own nothing in the company. But
or the board of directors. How about the board of directors? Are you saying that the board of directors members all have to file too? Because they have control.
Well, here's where we get into what's vague. What I would say is a board of directors, it's not a bright line test. I would say if you're a C-suite executive and you exercise substantial control, then yes, you're going to you're a deemed beneficial owner. It depends on how many's on the board. If the board of directors is 3 people, then probably. It's possible that board. Now, if you're for those before you panic, boards of directors. So like Nick, if he's got trustees of his nonprofit, they're exempt. But what we're talking about is a board of a privately held company.
Right.
Most of those people are going to have ownership stakes anyway. Again, ownership interest can be equity stock, transferable share, a certificate of business interest. That's pretty broad too, what it actually is an ownership interest. An individual can directly or indirectly own or control ownership interest through a contract or through a nominee or through other intermediary entities, okay? I said that a trust was exempt as a reporting company, and that's true. But if you own an interest in a trust and you're the trustee of that trustee technically doesn't own it. It's owned by the trust, but that trustee may have to file. Does a beneficiary have to file? Well, that's complicated. If the beneficiary is the sole permissible recipient of trust income and principal, right. Yes. If a beneficiary has discretionary power distributions of income and principal, he or she may not be a beneficial owner. A lot of the trusts we draft are grantor trusts. That means they're revocable or they're otherwise disregarded for income tax purposes. That grantor of that trust, whether or not he or she is the trustee, is a beneficial owner and is going to have to file if that trust owns 25% or more or has substantial control over some business. So here's where you get again, if you're a sole proprietor, the people that are probably going to Nick and the Creative Coast, and if it's a single member, it's pretty straightforward. But I'm just using this trust example to say that it can get pretty complicated pretty quickly, and some of you may need to seek legal counsel as to whether or not you have to file. So Marjorie just posted a question: do gig workers need to file? If you're driving for Uber, or you're working as a 1099 employee, and you don't have an entity, you don't have an LLC or a corporation, you're just getting a 1099 in your name, Marjorie Young, 1099, here you go. You do not have to file under the Corporate Transparency Act. There's no entity, there's no reporting company about which you need to report. If, however, you have an LLC, a single member LLC, that or corporation, most things are LLCs now, but could be a limited partnership or other things too, obviously, and you're getting a 1099 and that entity exists, then yes, you would have to file, even though that entity may be reported individually on your tax return as a disregarded entity for tax purposes, you still have a FinCEN filing requirement. And even if you have, let's just say, an entity that has no income or expenses, maybe it doesn't even have a tax ID number, you can form an entity with the Secretary of State. You don't get a tax ID number when you form it. You got to go to the IRS and get a number.
Right.
They have a requirement to file? Yes. So, gosh, these questions were going pretty quickly. What about subchapter S? So, yes, subchapter S, and I don't know if I can pronounce this lady's name.
It's an entity, right? It's an entity. So,
is just a tax designation before the IRS. So you can be an LLC and be a subchapter S. You can be a state law corporation and be a sub S. Simply because you're a sub S or a C corp, it doesn't matter. Yes, you would still have a filing requirement. Marjorie, you asked me a question about a designer. Will you post that back up? What about a writer that gets a 10? So no, a writer or designer that just gets a 1099, if Lou is hiring me as a columnist and she's paying me $10,000 for a column, and she
excuse me, I didn't mean to laugh. Excuse me.
Individual name, then that would not no.
Okay.
But my entity, my law firm, J.L. Williamson Law Group, is a filing entity. Sure. It is a sub S, to go back to that question, but of course you still have, yes, this filing requirement. Here's a question where it gets more complicated if you've done more sophisticated planning. Let's just say because of what happens if you make a mistake? Oh, well, you're supposed to correct your error within 30 days. But if it's a legitimate scrivener's error, there is no penalty for that. You're just supposed to correct it within 30 days of the original filing. Suppose I've to do some tax planning. Nick is worried about the reduction in the estate tax, which is going to sunset next year. And he's created a trust, or an irrevocable gifting trust, of which his children are the beneficiary. And he's named his best friend as the trust protector to do something. God forbid, if something were to happen to him, the trust protector could step in. Does that trust protector have to file as a beneficial owner if Nick has assigned that trust interest more than 25% in one of his properties, real estate or something? That's not necessarily a question that's been answered. You'd have to read the trust document and know what particular powers that trust protector has and what that trust protector can do. But possibly, yes, they may have to file. What if you're the trustee of a trust that owns a variety of interests you don't own, but you're just the trustee? You probably got to file. So here we go. I heard that a business went to file, but she got a notice saying it was already filed. Ooh. Well, that would be very concerning for me. I would want to find out from that business owner, did their law firm do it for her? Somebody would have had to
faked her identification.
Let me take this question more broadly. When we create an entity for people, we normally get their tax ID number. If they want to be an S, we make the S election. But a lot of firms usually sort of cede that work to the accountants. They'll just form an entity and they'll say, go see your accountant, and they'll decide whether you're a disregarded entity or a subchapter S or And we can talk about the efficacy of that. But regardless, most of the accountants are doing that work, or sometimes if you don't see a tax expert. But the AICPA has cautioned its CPA members, its accounting members, not to be filing these reports because they deem it as the quote unquote practice of law. So your accountant may not take on this role to file. As a matter of fact, my CPA, of course, we obviously know all about it, but my CPA, when filing my tax returns this past before the deadline, which got extended because of the storm, they had a little CTA notice, the Corporate Transparency Act notice, that said you need to do this, and by the way, we don't do it. How much does it cost to have an attorney file it for a small business owner? Now, Marjorie, you have to pay for quality. There's no substitute for quality. That was a joke. I mean, normally there is no set fee. Normally, when we create an entity, we're now just including that as part of our fee. But here's, and I'm not trying to talk myself out of work, but if you've got one LLC and you're the sole owner, you can probably go online and figure it out yourself. You know, that's the short of it.
If you make a mistake, there's a grace period.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's coming after, you know, this is just really, well, it's because of unscrupulous tax attorneys like me, right? They're creating these offshore entities to hide money and launder money and all of that. We'll have another video on how to launder money. We charge a lot for that purpose, but it's very lucrative, Marjorie.
It's not tax evasion. It's not tax evasion. It's tax avoidance.
There you go, Nick. There you go.
There's a wide gulf. But Jeffrey, what obligation do financial institutions have? Because we do have small business owners that they're reaching out to us and they said, hey, Wells Fargo said if I don't update XYZ information by the end of the year, they're going to close my account and kick me out.
Really?
How does that relate in there? So I know, at least for one of our small businesses, we bank at Wells Fargo, and they said if you don't update this information, you know, we're shutting it down. You know, because
I was not. This is news to me.
Wow.
You know, the banks do have, when you open an account now, they have these new know your customer rules, right?
Okay.
Like if you have an account in Liechtenstein or Switzerland, when you go and open an account there's just a number. There's no identifying. It could be Nick Palumbo. It could be Marjorie Young. It could be, you know, XYZ cocaine trafficker.
I'm writing this
down.
When
you open an account in the US, you have to fill out now for an entity, let's say, and you do it for an LLC, you got to fill out who owns that, what percentage. Those are all those know your customer rules.
But you have to give your incorporation documents too.
Yeah, you do.
Open a business bank account. Yeah.
In some states, like in Delaware and Wyoming, now Georgia's, when you do an LLC, you've got to file, there's a pretty good bit of public information. I can go on and see carriage trades documents and see who's the registered agent, the principal place of business. Let's say, but let's say, you know, Marjorie said, Jeffrey, it's time for me to go underground. I need you to work your magic. So we form a new entity in Delaware or Wyoming, and that's all a black box. I mean, they can see who your registered agent is, but that's it. So there's a lot, you know, but Nick, back to your question, I don't know how Wells Fargo would know whether or not you filed your BOI information. I mean, are they asking the client for proof that it's been filed?
It was interesting. It was a form letter that they sent out over the summertime, you know, that, you know, your business is not updated its BOI, you know, and we'll help walk you through the steps in the process. And if you don't file by the end of the year, you know, we're going to put a hold on your account.
I don't know how they would know whether you filed or not. They don't have access to the database. So
well,
I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that letter. But what I would say is the filing requirement
I'll dig it up and send it
on the individual, not on the banks.
Otherwise, there's a Russian guy or Chinese guy out there that has our LLC information.
Well, no, I would say, I mean, I'm sure it came from the bank, but I mean, what I'm saying, they're not going to know whether you file or not unless they ask you for proof.
Okay.
You know, it's not like that's just like saying, Nick, you know, I can't see what's on your 1040. that you just filed, right? Unless I got a copy of it. I mean, I can't go onto the IRS website and say, let me pull Nick Palumbo's Form 1040. Lou, did you had a question?
I do. So this whole FinCEN thing where you filed is this IRS, and is it IRS agents that will be enforcing it?
So this is not with the IRS. This was with the United States Treasury, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network.
So this is the Treasury Department, not the IRS.
Treasury, I mean, the IRS is under Treasury too, but it's not with the IRS. Honestly, probably has a lot of this information. This is
what I'm saying is, but what I'm asking you, Jeffrey, is how does the Treasury Department have enough employees to even pursue this? I mean, I don't even understand this.
Well, so the short answer is they probably don't. What they're creating, though, is one day, when someone gets caught for sale of cocaine or human trafficking or whatever, they've got a nice big database to search that person's name to see what comes up or what doesn't come up, right? They convicted Al Capone for tax evasion, not for, running liquor and killing people. So this is another way of saying, John Doe, did you file your FinCEN BOI information while you were trafficking, women through the United States? Of course, he or she wouldn't have filed, and that's just another way to find out and indict people. And so that's, I mean, they probably don't have enough agents to constantly sort it. It's just a big soup bowl of information. So yes, this is good. Let's end. I know we're running out of time. We heard that the act is being challenged in the court. So there was a district court in Alabama that held that the CTA was unconstitutional. And there are challenges in courts all over the country about the CTA. Here's what I would tell you. The deadline is January 1. You don't have to file for clients that have had their businesses in existence prior to January 1, 2024. You've got till the end of the year. It doesn't take that long to file. I'm encouraging my clients, though, to file and not hope and not wait on a court challenge to render this unconstitutional. Now, the plaintiffs in that case in Alabama, of course, Treasury is appealing it. But it is applicable only to them. So in other words, if FinCEN came after Nick and he held up that case, well, it was unconstitutional in Alabama. What the officials would say if they were really pressing him and say, well, that case was only binding on those litigants, not on the general public. But yes, there are court cases. It is being challenged. As I said, Trump vetoed it. If he were reelected, I mean, I don't know. I mean, he could, I guess, suspend enforcement of it. But I would not be relying on that.
Okay. Wow. So Brian, Somi, Nick, Lou, are there any last questions for Jeffrey?
Mine might be very simple, and I know that the trust issue brings up things, but in terms of a beneficiary, I have an LLC, sole member, but in my will, everything goes to my wife. Is she then a beneficial owner?
No. Your will is only effective when you die.
Okay.
Your will is only effective when you die. Okay. Now, let me just change the facts a little bit. Suppose you did a revocable trust, though, and made her a current beneficiary under your revocable trust. That might change. But no, just in a will, the answer would be no.
And just to be clear, if a company has multiple business owners, do each of them have to file, or does the file once with?
So let me end on this. Somi's starting a new business with Nick and Lou and me.
That'd be amazing.
And we're drafting an operating agreement. Might you want to put provisions in there that say every member of this LLC, we're going to make Somi the manager, is going to provide the manager with such documentation as enables him to file the BOI, the CTA files. And we're going to require it. And if you don't provide it, you're going to be, your membership is going to be suspended, or you're going to be expelled as a member. A buyout clause will kick in or something. Because what if I, Somi, say, you know what, you've got to file we just formed, Somi's Business Ventures, and I'm a member. And I say, you know what, I don't want to give you the information. Then what do you do? Well, there's answers on the FinCEN website about that. But any new operating agreement you do should contain those provisions. Because you don't want to be chasing me down you know, Jeffrey's kind of sketchy. I don't want to have to run him down to get his information. So that's just something that your new owner should think about. Does it cost more to get, you know, a more detailed operating agreement? Sure, but legal work is like anything else. You get what you pay for.
So you're saying it should be that requirement should be in your incorporation document.
Yeah, it should
any
be
members
right.
must agree to file the FinCEN requirements.
That's
Okay.
right.
Woo. So if viewers have more questions, can they reach out to you?
Yeah, they can. So I'm going to tell you, like I frequently speak, my email address is coming across the screen.
There it is.
The best way to reach me is via that email address. Now, I'm just telling you up front, will I respond timely? The answer is no, but I will respond. But
well, I'm hoping, Jeffrey, that you will speak at some other places. I mean, if any of you guys have an opportunity for him or to get this information out or help share this video, or when you do a new article.
Well, we'll do more. We'll do more working with Jeffrey to continue to explain this, try to break it into pieces, you know, because there's a lot here, you know.
It is a lot. But the big thing is small businesses watching, you need to file. You need to file.
Yeah, I would recommend, you don't have to file, you know, if you were incorporated, if you were formed before January 1, 2024, which is the majority probably of the audience.
Right.
Let's leave aside new businesses. You don't have to file tomorrow. I would not wait until, you know, 11 p.m. on December 31st.
Yeah.
But you got a little time.
Sure.
You don't have to file right today.
Well, and if it's any reassurance to small business owners, I think I've punched something in wrong, but I've just about completed doing it while we were watching this.
Great. That's great, Brian.
Yeah. It doesn't take, if you're a single member LLC, you know, and you got one entity, or Nick, you know, you're entrepreneurs, it's nothing to really freak out or panic about. It's just when you get more complicated entities, more complicated structures, then it really begins to, it can get complicated quickly.
Yeah.
You know, we would love to do like a workshop, a lunchtime topic. Be
happy to let me know. We'll do it in In-Market Arena. Invite the whole city.
It might be a good idea to bring everybody in there, small business owners. Okay, if you haven't filled out your BOI, you know, come on, get in here. You know, because that $10,000 is a huge hit. 500 is a huge hit.
A day.
$500 a day is frightening.
Let me leave with this. If any of you out there get a penalty assessment, and you need to, before you pay it, you should seek legal counsel. Right. Contact it, because we frequently deal with IRS penalties, abating penalties. There's going to be, if it's $500, you might just pay it. But if you got a $10,000 penalty, before I paid it, I'd talk to an attorney to see if you couldn't mitigate that.
Right. If it wasn't willful. Yeah. Okay.
So in respect to your time, all of you, I know everybody's so busy. Thank you for being on the water cooler and making this subject a lot more clearer of what needs to happen. So
thank you, Marjorie, for tackling this.
Yes. Thank you, Marjorie.
Well, you know, I'm a small business owner, and there's a lot of them around here, and I don't want anybody having to pay $500 a day that doesn't need to. So anyhow, with that, we're going to say goodbye. We'll see you on the next water cooler. Bye for now.
Thanks for having me.